What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we are back home again. Hallelujah. And so, thank you for following me while I was on the road. I did a few of these Instagram Lives that are Jimmy Rant episodes while I was gone, but it's good to be back home. I'm going to try to be in the regular routine this coming up week of giving you a couple of Jimmy Rants episodes each and every day. So thanks for watching. If you're watching this live or if you're watching on the replay, whether on Instagram or on YouTube, thanks for watching Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is our website if you want to hear all the different rants that I've done on various topics in the world of health and keto and everything else. So today I have another controversial topic that I want to rant on. And somebody made this suggestion of, you going to ever talk about cholesterol? And there's so many things about cholesterol that I could rant on, but I thought this topic I'm going to address here today is the topic that I think with this particular issue of cholesterol is the big one. And here it is. The case for having high cholesterol versus having low cholesterol. So this might seem like a trick question for people that aren't familiar with cholesterol metabolism and how it works and what those numbers mean about your health and what the actual numbers that are good on your cholesterol panel versus the ones that are bad. So if you ask a mainstream professional and even a lot of cardiologists who are supposed to know a thing or two about heart disease and cholesterol and how it relates to heart disease, yada yada, they would tell you, they would make the case for having lower cholesterol. And so we've talked about this history with Ansel Keys vilifying fat in the diet because it raised cholesterol in the diet and thus it increases your risk of heart disease. We talked about how it was based on a flawed data point called the 7 Countries Study. This was done way back in the 1950s, this study, and yet we're still here in 2018 living under the auspices of bad science. And the bad science was he selected 7 countries that fit his mold for his theory, but there was 20-somethings data points that he could have chosen from, but he wanted the 7 that basically said the more saturated fat you ate, the higher your cholesterol was, and the higher the levels of heart disease. And he completely ignored all of those cultures that he studied that found that low cholesterol, they had the lowest amount of saturated fat intake, and yet they had higher heart disease rates. And then the ones that ate a whole lot of fat in their diet had very high cholesterol levels and yet very low heart disease rates. So anyway, that's the groundwork for this discussion we're having. And unfortunately, that study is still believed because it's considered the holy grail of heart health. And until, I guess, a new study comes out that kind of shows new data points, it's going to continue to be kind of this gold standard study that all of these people point to, cardiologists, physicians, as the reason why they want lower and lower cholesterol levels. So, I want to make a case here today that it's better for you to have high cholesterol than it is to have low cholesterol. So what do doctors and dietitians and different ones have you do to lower your cholesterol? They tell you to eat less fat, because if you're not eating fat, you can't raise your cholesterol, and definitely don't eat dietary cholesterol. That's what they tell you. Eat lots of healthy whole grains, and all of your cholesterol woes will be over, and thus you don't have to worry about heart disease. And yet they neglect that there was a study done in a hospital, and what they did was they looked at the patients that came into this hospital with some kind of a cardiovascular event. So they had a heart attack, they had angina, which is chest pain, anything that was related to some kind of cardiovascular issue going on. And they tested their blood cholesterol levels to see what the correlation was between the amount of cholesterol that was in their blood and the incident of this heart attack or angina or whatever the issue was. And what they found was shocking, you guys. 3 out of 4 patients, so 3/4 of them, 75% of the patients who came in with this angina, with heart disease, with some kind of a heart attack, something that was related to cardiovascular issues, 3/4 of them had cholesterol levels of 200 or lower. In other words, within the healthy range. Only 25% of them came in with levels above 200. And so it begs the question, if low cholesterol is the answer to heart disease, then why did that happen? Why are we still seeing people like Tim Russert, the former Meet the Press host on NBC, very highly respected journalist, television journalist for many years, and he died of his very first heart attack at the age of like 54 or something like that, 53, 54. He died of his very first heart attack. Want to know what his total cholesterol was? It was 105. And any cardiologist, any family doctor, anybody with a medical training in the traditional realm would say, oh my gosh, that's a spectacularly healthy individual. And yet, obviously, he wasn't spectacularly healthy. He was incredibly unhealthy. We later found out that he had a heart scan score, the CT heart scan, a calcium score off the charts high. That's why he had the heart attack. He had inflammation levels that were super high. He was not healthy. And yet, because mainstream medicine, all they looked at was his total cholesterol being really low and his LDL cholesterol, LDLC, very low, they were happy. And at this conference I was just at in Low Carb Houston, one of the speakers is my friend Dave Feldman, and he's got a website, I believe it's cholesterolcode.com, where he's been doing various experiments. And one of the experiments that he conducted on himself earlier this year was where he went on the standard American diet for a period of time because he wanted to show what happened to his lipids when he ate the standard American diet. And guess what happened? His total cholesterol came down like a champ. His total cholesterol dropped, and most of it was in the LDL. There was some HDL drop as well, but his total cholesterol dropped to what many would consider a healthy range, many medical professionals. And yet, what happened to the rest of his panel? His triglycerides went through the roof, predictably, by the way, and his HDL came down. So when HDL goes down, triglycerides go through the roof, that's no bueno for your health. So they would celebrate, doctors would, that he lowered his LDL. They would celebrate that he lowered his total cholesterol. But because all those other markers got worse, it was a net negative in his health. So he eats normally a low-carb, high-fat ketogenic diet, which gives him super high LDL, super high total cholesterol, and yet his triglycerides are down below 100. His HDL is up above 50. Those are good signs of cardiometabolic health. So you can make the case that a high cholesterol diet is far superior to a low cholesterol diet. And I haven't even gotten into what low cholesterol, how it manifests itself physically. So here's what happens. You get lower and lower cholesterol. And by the way, in that study in the hospital, a lot of those ones that were below 200 were artificially below 200 because they were taking a statin medication to lower it. All right, back to the story. So too low cholesterol, and it typically happens when people take Lipitor, Zocor, Crestor, all of these statin drugs, cholesterol will go down like a champ. But what happens? Because your body, and especially your brain, relies so heavily on cholesterol, you just don't feel well in your brain health. You start to get cranky, you start to get moody, and especially as cholesterol, total cholesterol levels dip below 150, you really start feeling the negative neurological detriment that happens to your brain. It's not fun, guys. And I've actually been on Lipitor in the past, and got my cholesterol down to like 130, 125, something like that. And the doctor was just heralding, "Oh, great job. What a wonderful thing this is. Kudos to you. And that drug's doing the job, and it's going to make you healthy." Meanwhile, he didn't realize I was having fits of anger, and I was having mood disruption, and I was not feeling myself, and I couldn't recall things. And I was in my 20s when I was taking that crazy drug, and I shouldn't have been feeling like an old person, but I did. I felt like an old man taking that drug because it was messing with my noggin, because I was removing this essential element, cholesterol and fat, from my body. So too low cholesterol was not good. And so high cholesterol, let's talk about that a minute. So they think, mainstream medicine thinks that if you have high cholesterol, that's clogging your arteries and it's going to give you a heart attack and heart disease. And it makes logical sense to people, because when you show them the arteries of someone who has a blocked artery, or someone dies and they do an autopsy and they see that yellow waxy substance in there, oh my gosh, there's the cholesterol. Look, the cholesterol killed them. And I talked about this before in another Jimmy Rants, but the cholesterol is basically like a firefighter, and it's actually the inflammation that is the issue. And so if you have higher cholesterol, perhaps your body is doing all it can to save you from having disease. Now, obviously, you can't keep pumping up the inflammation levels in your body and expecting your body to respond well to that. It can only do just so much. But it's the cholesterol that's going in there trying to heal and repair your body. It's not there to cause you harm. And here's another reason why cholesterol in the body isn't harmful. Your body makes cholesterol. And so when you downregulate the amount of intake of cholesterol and fat in your diet, your body ramps up the amount of cholesterol that it makes. Now, at some point, it can't keep up with what it needs, especially if you're inflaming your body. The cholesterol goes down, 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 and your doctor's so proud of you. But what you've done is you've now removed the firefighters from your body, and you have less firefighters to come to the scene of the fire, and thus you're making yourself more susceptible to heart disease. More, because you have low cholesterol. So let's get back to the high cholesterol. So high cholesterol means you have lots of firefighters that are doing a great job of trying to keep you healthy and keep you alive. And especially for those of you watching this that are in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, you typically start to see higher and higher levels of cholesterol as you get older. So that's a good thing. And yet what happens? Someone that's 65 goes and sees their doctor. The doctor sees that their blood cholesterol level is 270. Oh my gosh, you're going to keel over of a heart attack if you don't take this statin medication. So here's a prescription for the highest dose you can possibly have, because we've got to get rid of that cholesterol. And yet, if you do that, you make yourself at a higher risk of heart disease, a higher risk of dying from a heart attack, a higher risk of cancer, a higher risk of diabetes. All of these things happen because you think high cholesterol is a disease. Newsflash, high cholesterol is not a disease. It is a very good thing. You want more cholesterol in your body, especially as you get older. And the highest levels of cholesterol in the body that take place when you're in your senior years is a very good thing. And so, unfortunately, here's what happens. Older people go and see their doctor, and they tend to be that generation that tends to believe their doctors, so they obediently take the statin medication. Then they start to have brain health issues because their cholesterol gets lower, the things we talked about earlier with low cholesterol, and their brain health starts to diminish. And what do we say? Oh, that's just old age. That's what happens when you get old. And so people just fall into this pattern of, well, high cholesterol is problematic. We lower it with a statin drug. Grandma, grandpa start to have memory problems, and they start to develop Alzheimer's disease and having all these issues happen. And we blame it on old age. And it was the statin medication that artificially lowered their cholesterol to obscenely low levels. If you're over the age of 50 and you're watching this right now, either live on Instagram, on the replay on Instagram, or on YouTube, or you're listening to this rant on the Jimmy Rants podcast, listen. You would rather have high cholesterol than you would low cholesterol, because cholesterol is not the enemy in your health. The enemy in your health is inflammation. And if you don't have inflammation, you can't be diseased. Okay? So don't let a doctor try to convince you that because your cholesterol is, quote, high, that you're automatically at great risk for heart disease. It's just not true. And so I'm making the case here today that you would far superiorly like to have high cholesterol than you would ever want to have low cholesterol. If you want to learn more, I did write a book about this called Cholesterol Clarity, What the HDL is Wrong with My Numbers. You can go get it on Amazon, wherever books are sold. They do have it. But this is an issue that's sad. I wrote that book in 2013, and yet people still fear having high cholesterol. It's crazy. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate you watching my Jimmy Rants. Lily Grand says, I had my first blood work done after 8 months on keto. All was pretty good except for total cholesterol of 290. It scared me a bit. Then I read Cholesterol Clarity. It made me feel so much better. Yeah, unfortunately, because we have this notion that high cholesterol is a disease, it is not. That people get scared. And so kudos to you for wanting to dig deeper, find out what's going on. And my friend Dave Feldman, who I talked about earlier, cholesterolcode.com, he's even shown how you can manipulate those cholesterol numbers to artificially lower them down by eating more fat in the days before you go to get your blood work done. And, by the way, fasting increases your cholesterol levels. And so if you want to lower your cholesterol, you eat a whole bunch of fat before you go, like the 3 days leading into having your cholesterol tested. And if you want to have higher cholesterol levels, fast for 3 days before you go in, and you'll have higher levels of cholesterol. It's pretty strange how that works. All right, guys, that is it for this Jimmy Rants. Thanks for watching. Go to jimmyrants.com if you want to see all of the rants that I've done. We've been doing these regularly now on Instagram Live. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to follow me, go to @LivingLowCarbMan over on Instagram. And I do these generally in the morning time and the afternoon time. We also are starting a brand new Jimmy Rants podcast that will be available on Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to podcasts real soon as well. So thanks for watching. We'll be back again real soon with another Jimmy Rants. Bye.